Welcome to medieval history firsthand. Tonight, we travel back to a time of plate armor, pennants, and pointed lances. A time when your social status was worn in steel, your future was tied to a horse, and your most important meal came with a side of bruised ribs. Tonight, we ask, what would happen if you lived just one day as a medieval knight in a grand jousting tournament? Chances are that you would have a very bad day. You don't wake up in a bed. You wake up in a feather-stuffed sack that smells like a mix between damp wool and last week's stew. Your chamber is stone. Your breath fogs in the morning air. The only thing louder than the snoring squire in the next cot is the church bell tolling lauds. You stretch, hear something pop, probably a rib from yesterday's sparring, and roll out of bed with the grace of a sack of turnips. You're not just any knight. You're a landed knight. You've got retainers, a war horse, and a reputation to uphold, which means that today you're expected to risk your collarbone for glory. You throw on a linen shirt, hose, and your gambeson, a quilted jacket stuffed with enough wool to insulate a monastery. Breakfast? Bread so hard it might be mistaken for a weapon, a chunk of cheese the texture of regret, and watered wine that tastes like disappointment. You nod to your squire. He's already brushing down your destrier, the massive horse that costs more to feed than your entire retinue. He's named Thunder, and today, Thunder is either your ticket to fame or your fast track to the local surgeon. Outside, the tournament grounds are already stirring. Banners flutter like medieval billboards. Vendors sell roasted meats, sweetmeats, and mystery meats. The crowd's gathering, lords, ladies, peasants, and pickpockets. Everyone's here for one thing: violent, ceremonial, extremely theatrical combat. You strut into the lists, your plate armor gleaming like a walking chandelier. At least, that's the goal. In reality, your squire is still greasing the hinges of your gauntlets, because one of them jammed during last week's melee. Your armor weighs 45 to 60 pounds, not enough to stop you from moving, but definitely enough to make stairs your mortal enemy. The heralds blare their trumpets. A bard mangles your family crest in rhyme. Nobles squint at you from their velvet-draped boxes, like they're deciding if you're worthy of marriage or mockery. And there, at the other end of the field, sits your opponent, Sir Baldwin of Eastmarch, all polished bravado and smug visor tilts. You nod. He nods. The moment has arrived. You're no longer just a knight with lineage, acreage, and debts the size of Normandy. You are now a competitor in the grandest jousting tournament this side of the Rhine, and every noble in attendance is watching to see if you'll soar to glory, or get peeled off your saddle like a boiled turnip. Your squire approaches, lugging your lance like it's a sacred relic. He looks terrified, probably because he polished your greaves last night with what turned out to be lard instead of wax. "Good luck, my lord," he says, eyes wide. You nod solemnly, or at least you try to. Your gorget, the plate collar protecting your neck, is so tight it turns your attempt into more of a turtle-like head bob. The herald raises a trumpet. The crowd hushes. Somewhere, a hawk screams, because of course it does. This is a storybook moment, and even the birds know it. Your name is bellowed across the tourney field, Sir Aldrich of Greystone Keep. There's polite applause, a cheer from a servant who might be your cousin, and then the next name, Sir Baldwin of Eastmarch. The crowd roars louder. Ugh, of course, Baldwin's the local favourite. He's got 3 titles, perfect teeth, and a smile that looks like it was forged in a monastery for the criminally charming. You both take your marks at opposite ends of the tilt barrier, a long wooden divider down the centre of the jousting lane that keeps the horses from colliding and the knights from cheating. You adjust your visor. The world narrows into a slit of blinding light and dusty haze. You can see the glint of Baldwin's armor at the other end, shimmering like a mirror held up to the sun. Your breathing slows. Your fingers tighten around the lance. 10 feet of ash wood, counterweighted and tipped with a blunt coronal, designed not to pierce, but to crush. And crush it does. The trumpet blares, and thunder charges. Your destrier surges forward with the force of a battering ram. Every hoofbeat is a drum roll in your chest. You don't ride thunder. Thunder launches you. Your legs grip tight. Your arm locks. The lance levels. This isn't just a gallop. It's a sprint toward ritualized violence. The world becomes rhythm. The clatter of hooves, the rattle of armor, the roar of the crowd. You and Baldwin rush each other like two living catapults, each hell-bent on planting wood into flesh and sending the other man somersaulting into the dirt. And then, impact. Not the cinematic slow-motion kind, the real kind. A sudden whiplash explosion of force. Baldwin's lance connects with your left pauldron, shoulder plate. The sound is like someone trying to chop firewood with a battering ram. But your lance? Dead center. Square into his cuirass. The chest plate polished so bright, you briefly see your own distorted reflection, a heartbeat, before it splinters. The ash wood shatters. Baldwin topples. It's not graceful. It's not noble. It's pure physics. Armor clanks. Dust flies. He hits the earth with a thud you feel in your spine, even from across the field. The crowd gasps, then erupts. Flowers are thrown, hats tossed. Some peasant even flings a sausage. You reel your horse around and ride past him slowly, visor still down, every inch the victorious predator on parade. Baldwin groans on the ground, his squire flailing to unstrap his helmet. You resist the urge to blow a kiss. 1 point, Sir Aldrich. But it's not over. This is a best-of-3 pass, and Baldwin, despite eating a faceful of turf, is getting back up. He's staggering a little, but pride is an excellent painkiller. Your squire offers you a new lance. You grab it, your arms sore, your ribs are yelling, but adrenaline's singing louder. You line up again. Trumpet, silence, charge. The second pass is brutal. Both of you lower your lances with lethal precision. Baldwin's aim is better this time. He catches you just under the right armpit, between plates. Pain flares. You nearly drop the lance. But your own strike slams into his shoulder, hard enough to snap the shaft clean and send Baldwin's upper body jerking sideways like a sack of barley. But he doesn't fall. This one's a draw. You both wheel around and nod to each other across the tilt. There's a grim respect now. No smirks, no raised brows. Just sweat, blood, and shared trauma. Final pass. You breathe deep. Your helmet is hot enough to boil eggs inside. The chainmail under your plate is drenched. You adjust your grip. Your squire makes a quick sign of the cross. Trumpet. Charge. This one's faster. Desperate. The crowd is roaring. Your vision blurs from sweat. 10 feet. 5. Crack. Everything explodes. A sound like thunder striking a tree. Baldwin's lance hits your breastplate. You feel it reverberate through every vertebra, but you stay mounted. Your own lance drives into his shield, shattering it in half, and rips the weapon from his grasp. His horse veers. Baldwin slides, and hits the ground in a tangle of limbs and steel. Victory. You rain thunder to a halt. Breathe. You're shaking. Your left arm's numb, but you did it. The field marshal runs forward. Hands are raised. The herald announces, Sir Aldrich is victorious. Trumpets blare. Drums pound. Someone starts a chant that may or may not rhyme with your name. You dismount, nearly collapse. Your squire rushes over like you've returned from a holy war. He's crying, or sweating from the eyes. Hard to tell. You raise your visor. The crowd sees your face, dirty, bruised, glorious. A noblewoman tosses you her handkerchief. You catch it with more grace than you thought you had left. Across the field, Baldwin's already sitting up. His helmet's off. He gives you a nod. You return it, because that is the code. Pain is temporary. Glory is forever. Final round. You and the second-best knight left standing. You mount again. The heat has risen. Your armor is now a personal oven, and the smell inside your helmet is 90% man, 10% despair. This time, the charge is faster, more desperate. Your lance hits first. You hear a crack. Hope it was the lance. It wasn't. He topples, hard. You stay mounted. Victory. The crowd surges. Nobles cheer. Peasants cheer louder. The lady from earlier throws a garland, or a baked pigeon. Again, unclear. You dismount, stagger like a war-torn drunkard, and raise your visor. The victor of the tournament. You. Your name will be sung. Your bruises will multiply. And your squire? He's already prepping your bath. Hopefully. Victory tastes sweet. But right now, what you taste is blood in your mouth, bile in your throat, and a trace of whatever you accidentally bit down on when Baldwin's lance tried to tunnel into your sternum. It might have been part of your cheek. Hard to tell. Still, you've won. You're the last man seated in the saddle. The crowd loves you. Nobles are already gossiping about your technique, and your squire is looking at you like you just slew a dragon and taught it to dance. The sun is high, and the field smells like sweat, dust, and adrenaline. The knights limp off the lists, some on foot, some in stretchers. Meanwhile, the heralds declare an intermission, which in the medieval world means one thing: the feast. You're escorted to the great pavilion, reserved for noble participants and very important people who mostly spectated while sipping wine from pewter goblets and making passive-aggressive comments about the armor styles of neighboring counties. The tent is massive, brightly colored canvas stretched across timber poles, its ceiling painted with scenes of saints, lions, and things meant to look like griffins, but suspiciously resemble angry chickens. Inside, long trestle tables groan under the weight of food: boiled chickens, roast capons, pies filled with spiced meat and suspicion, fresh-baked trenches of bread so dense they could double as stepping stones, and wheels of cheese that may or may not have their own personalities by now. You take your seat among the other surviving knights. Some are smiling, some are grimacing. One is holding his shoulder at an angle that says he's not going to be reaching for anything with his right arm for the foreseeable future. There's a goblet at your place. Wine. Real wine. Not the peasant stuff that tastes like foot sweat and vinegar. You take a sip. It tastes like grapes and privilege. A platter of roast pork is passed down the table. It comes with a thick apple glaze and a layer of crispy fat that might bring tears to your eyes if you hadn't already cried during the second pass when your helmet slammed your nose. Next comes pottage, thick, savory, and filled with barley, leeks, and unidentified meat that's either lamb or something with hooves that made eye contact before it died. You don't care. You eat like a man who's wrestled a battering ram and won. The nobles raise their cups to toast the victor. That's you. You stand slowly. Every joint protests. You raise your goblet and try to say something noble, heroic, poetic. What comes out is, "My thanks. And if I fall over, it's not from drink." Laughter. Applause. Someone slaps your back hard enough to dislodge a lung. A bard begins to sing. It's a ballad about the brave knight of Greystone Keep who unhorsed Baldwin with grace and grit. The melody's fine. The lyrics? Less so. He rhymes valor with gawler. Still, you nod appreciatively and pretend your ears aren't bleeding. Across the table sits a noblewoman, dressed in silk and crowned with a circlet of polished silver. She's watching you, not in the way that says, "I admire your swordplay," but in the way that says, "My family owns land, and I'm assessing your inheritance viability." You meet her gaze, offer a slight bow of the head. She smiles, just enough to imply your saddle prowess has not gone unnoticed. Your squire, meanwhile, is lurking behind you like a loyal barnacle. He keeps whispering reminders. "Don't scratch your armpit, my lord. It looks undignified. That's a duke's pie. Maybe let him take the first slice. No, no, don't wipe your mouth on the tablecloth." You ignore half of it, but you do let the duke cut first, mostly because you suspect he could have you exiled with a single cough. The feast continues. Trays of honeyed figs, poached pears in spiced wine, and a suspiciously enthusiastic pudding arrive. You eat until your gut reminds you that the breastplate only looks flexible. Knights begin retelling their favorite moments of the joust, the hits, the close calls, the one squire who forgot to tighten a saddle and turned his knight into a medieval lawn dart. The jokes get louder. So does the ale pouring, and somewhere between a toast to St. George and a raucous limerick involving a goose and a bishop's daughter, you finally allow yourself to smile, really smile. Because for a moment, you're not just a knight. You're the knight, the champion, the center of gravity in a room full of lords, ladies, warriors, and at least one tipsy friar who keeps refilling his cup with holy water and pretending it's wine. A steward approaches, bearing a rolled parchment and a red silk sash. You stand as he announces, "By the decree of Lord Edric of Ashford, patron of the tourney, the prize for today's contest, 150 silver marks, the banner of the Ashford Lion, and the honour of the laurel, are hereby awarded to Sir Aldrich of Greystone Keep." Cheers erupt. The noblewoman claps. Baldwin, now bandaged and bruised, raises his goblet in your direction. You bow. The sash is placed over your shoulder, the silver handed off to your squire, who looks like he's mentally planning the stable upgrades already. And just when you think the moment can't get any better, the court jester, dressed in motley, juggling apples, walks up and says, "A fine tilt, my lord. Tell me, does your squire train your lance or your horse's wit?" You stare at him for 3 long seconds, then reply, "Both. But I sharpen my sense of humour on jesters." The table howls with laughter. Even the noblewoman laughs behind her goblet. The jester bows and slinks away, defeated but delighted. The feast winds down. The nobles begin to rise, stretch, and gossip their way out of the tent. The knights limp toward their pavilions or the nearest hay-pile. And you? You remain seated just a little longer, soaking in the moment. The wine, the warmth, the fleeting sting of triumph. Your body aches. Your shoulder feels like it might detach by morning. Your face is probably purple under the grime. But right now, you don't care. You have won. And in a world where titles, land, and legends are built not just in war, but in the theatre of the lists, your name will echo through the next few feasts. And maybe, just maybe, into the history books. You limp back to your quarters as the sun dips behind the chapel steeple. Your joints creak louder than your armor. Your squire helps you out of the suit piece by piece, each one more painful than the last. You eat again. More bread, more cheese, more ale. You stare into the fire, muscles throbbing, face half burned from the sun through your visor slit. You mutter a prayer, not just for victory, but that you don't have to joust again for at least a month. Tomorrow, you'll be sore. You might not be able to walk without assistance. But tonight, you're the champion. The people love you. The nobles nod your way. And in the songs sung by half-drunk minstrels tonight, you'll be 8 feet tall and made of steel. Sleep comes fast. The straw mattress feels like a cloud. And as you fade into dreams, one thought lingers. You survived the tournament. But your ribs, they may never forgive you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Medieval History Firsthand. If you like this video, click on one of the videos on your screen now to watch more. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next time on Medieval History Firsthand, where history is brought to life.